G'day guys, welcome to the PAIG Property Show. Another week at the office over here. Two amazing guests who specialize in, one is in accounting and business finance, Stephen Travis, who's from PAIG Accounting Services, and also one of our B2B associates, our property broker, Masih Azimi. Masih is usually our guest. He comes here once in 2 weeks. Masih, we don't see a lot of you, so we'll start with you today. How's things been out on the field, mate?
Very good.
Yeah.
Busy.
Yeah. Where are the clients looking at? What are they buying? Where have you been mainly focusing on?
So previously I focused a lot on investments, but recently clients have been a little bit scared of investing because of the market, difficult to get finance approval, etc.
Sure.
Especially in Sydney. So mainly focusing on the Melbourne market. It's cheaper to purchase there. The market's doing pretty well. Property prices are still going up, despite all the negative media regarding Sydney and Melbourne. Although they're right about Sydney, Melbourne actually it's doing pretty well, especially in the outer ring. If you're purchasing, for example, house land packages and things like that, you're going to make pretty good money.
Melbourne West mainly, of course, the hot pockets right now, just to also let our viewers know as well. But Melbourne has been more like what Sydney was back in 2014 in terms of the yields, in terms of the buying price. According to the property clock, still pretty much between 8 and 9.
Yields are much better compared to Sydney. Sydney yields are around the 2.5% mark. Melbourne, you're looking more around the 3.5%. In terms of location, as you said, western suburbs definitely. Werribee, Tarneit, Wyndham Vale, Rockbank, Thornhill Park. These kind of areas are doing pretty well. Apart from that, also the northern suburbs as well. I've noticed that not a lot of people actually pay attention to the northern suburbs, especially areas like Mickleham. Clyde is in the southeast. So Mickleham, Donnybrook. One of the main reasons is because Craigieburn, which is a really popular suburb, a lot of people who want to live there, the prices have exploded and not a lot of people can afford to live in Craigieburn anymore. So now they're just moving one suburb up, which is Mickleham, only about 5 minutes away from Craigieburn, but probably about $100,000 cheaper. Apart from that, they're planning on building Victoria's largest business parks. This is going to be a mixture of industrial and commercial. So this is going to be part of the Merrifield estate in Mickleham. And they're also planning on building a shopping centre in the Merrifield as well. Going back west, in Werribee, they're planning on building a $30 billion education city. It has been approved by the government. So now they're just basically waiting for investors to come along and build the city. So it has been approved. But yeah, so
and really that's really what we've been part of at PAIG. You as of course a external B2B associated PAIG broker to your clients, and of course with us in the internal team, coming very quickly to you, Steve. Business and accounting finance, like Masih mentioned, finance has been a lot of the struggle. Banks not really behaving, but a lot of lower tier lenders, of course, not so much on the advice, but just the generic outlook.
Well, the reason for that is actually not really something that consumers themselves have much control over, because currently a lot of this has left over to do with the global financial crisis almost a decade ago now. Australian banks over the years have been forced essentially by the government to tighten their belts and become basically up their reserves and adjust the way they have their lending criteria. So it's not really something that consumers have a real power over with regards to the banks. So the only real thing that we can do there is advise consumers to shop around. That's where you need to get an expert broker, mortgage broker, say someone in our network. They can actually find you the better deal, because there's a lot of second and third tier lenders out there. You've got big banks at the top, tier one, second and third tier, other non-bank lenders. So my advice on that would be to shop around. Don't just go to the big four. Start with the big four, sure, but go to a qualified broker, like someone in our network.
PAIG Financial Services, PAIG Accounting Services.
That's correct, yep.
Got it a lot, absolutely.
So we have access to people who, to brokers who are on the top end and are able to get deals deals and structures that may not necessarily be available if you went in on your own straight to the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first insight that I could give. But the second one is to, as just going back earlier, people being fearful of the property market. Consumers need to remind themselves that the property market is a long-term game. And in a lot of sense, it actually is, in somewhat a sense, a generational game. And that's why it's important to take what in the business world we would describe as what's called a through cycle approach. Through cycle means that over the years, asset prices, real estate specifically in this regard, asset prices go through a cycle. They go up and down, and often people will get into the trap of trying to predict what is about to happen in the future. No one can predict what happens in the future. I would be a very wealthy man if I knew what the property prices were going to do in 6 months' time. I would be very wealthy. But no one knows. The truth is that when it comes to long-term investment, which real estate, vast majority of the time is, especially when it comes to consumers, real estate is a long-term game, so it's important to actually keep your eye on the ball 20, 30, 40 years down the track, even to the extent of looking at what your children and your children's children are going to be gaining from that. So the fear that we have at the moment, and really a lot of that is driven by the media. I'd like to take a word out of a few words out of a famous individual who I won't mention, but the term fake news comes to mind.
Yep.
The news media tends to really spin things up. They will take issues, say what the Reserve Bank says and all that sort of stuff, and they will turn them into a frenzy. It's not so much they say that they're telling lies, but it's more like it's an exaggeration, so to speak. It's really important to take a long-term approach with real estate. It's really important to sit down with a proper advisor and the proper legal and accounting experts to do that.
Yeah, and I think goal setting is very important. You hit that right
Absolutely.
right on the nail as well. It is about education and it is about knowledge as well. And there are very few companies, and I'm not saying this is because of the PAIG model, but what PAIG has really structured is that we are aggregators, and your services, your expertise are all part of the journey. So the myth that is out there is only going to feed your fear more. So people who are out there who are shopping, you guys might think that you guys know what you're buying, but that's more of an emotional decision. Whereas if you're coming to us, or if you're going through another, maybe it could be another buyer's agent, or could be another broker, or an investment group, whatever that may be, I think it's very important to choose the right group and stick with that group, because that's your team and that's your sort of family in the property journey. Because without your family and without a goal setting, you're never going to reach anywhere. And the more you kind of think and the more you procrastinate, you're never going to buy another property. And correct me, James, if I'm wrong as well. And I think for the first home buyers, more importantly, I think it's about the trust factor. The problem out in the market is that everyone is selling a project. Everyone is selling house and land. Everyone's selling some sort of an acreage. What people are not really doing is educating. And that's exactly where we're coming through. And what we've been finding, just to let all our viewers know, is that it all starts with the finance. I'm not a financial broker. Steve is not a financial broker. Messi is not a financial broker as well. Get the right financial broker. That's the first, most important step to qualify yourself. And like Steve said, your major fours are good, but right now they're not the best choice. There are 50 different lenders out in the market, banks and non-banks, but a financial broker, we could help you down at PAIG Financial Services without even selling you a property. It's all about the education, sitting with your broker, having a confidential chat about your income, assets, expenses, liabilities, and then you would probably understand where you're at in the realistic sense. If you can borrow a loan, how much can you borrow? How much can you service? Where are you going to be servicing? And you'll be amazed by the results. And see, I think that's probably where your client's probably coming from, either a pre-approved quote or you probably recommend them to a PAIG financial service broker.
Absolutely. I'd never recommend any property to my clients unless they have gone through a broker
Sure.
first. Because if I don't know how much they can borrow, I can't recommend them a property. What if I recommend them a property that's $550,000, but they can only borrow $500,000?
Yeah.
Where are they going to get the other $50,000?
Servicing is an issue.
It's absolutely important. Yeah.
I might just add to that by saying that quite often we think of financing as being a one-dimensional approach. An individual has a job, they go to a bank or a financer and they ask for money. In one of my specialties is dealing with business structures and investment structures, trust companies and like. Quite often families can actually have multiple individuals leverage their serviceability to create situations where it's not just one individual, but it's actually a family, a family group investing as a family. But in that regard, it's very important that I might just add what you were saying about brokers. It's really important that you find a suitably qualified and trusted broker. There are a lot of people out there. One of the things about the PAIG model is we only deal with the reputable brokers. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, in some situations we have been referred by some not so suitable brokers, and in those cases we had to actually turn around and suggest other things and allow people to seek alternative advice. So it's really important that you get that you be part of a network of individuals that are trusted and qualified and have the expertise to be able to seek funding for different business structures, different investment structures, and not just the individual side of things.
And to also wrap it up, guys, there are so many brokers out there, like it's literally like opening up corner stores. Brokers who have just come back and might put their financial expertise from another market or from another country because they've done it previously back in the origin of the country as well. Be very careful and make sure you guys can consult with us. Like Steve mentioned, we've got high-end flame brokers who've done